All right. Good morning, everybody. So if you would just shoot me over a quick message to let me know if you can hear me or not. And we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Thanks, David. So I just want to go over the quick normal things. If you've been here before, you've heard all this, but I am coming at you live from my home office. I'm in my house. I do have a dog. We do get packages delivered here. People come to the door all kinds of time of the day. Luckily, we haven't ran into that yet, but I'm sure it's going to happen at some point. So somebody knocks on the door. My dog's going to start barking. If I disappear and have to go take care of that real quick, I'll be right back as soon as I can. So if you see me disappear, something like that, that's what's going on there. Make sure that you have your notifications for the emails set up correctly. You can do that by going to the office hours tab and then clicking to, I believe it says customize office hours notifications. Make sure you got that all set. If you're having trouble with that, just email. It's going to be support@topspeedgolf.com, and somebody will be able to help you with that. Hopefully get you set up with that. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to try and answer as many questions as I can. Fortunately, I probably won't be able to get to every single question, but I'm going to try to. So I'm going to go ahead and let's start with I'm going to start with Eldridge here. So if you're somebody that actually, I'll start with Greg S. So Greg S, I'm going to start with that one. And the reason why I'm not going all the way, I know a lot of you may have been in here waiting and posting a question. The reason why I'm starting there is because I want to be answering questions for people that I want to make sure that they're in here, because you have to be here live to be able to see your question answered. We're not archiving these at this time. So if you ask a question and then leave and you don't see your question get answered, you're not going to be able to see it at this time. And we may do that in the future, but just right now we're not. So if you're someone who was below Greg S, such as Daniel A was right below Greg S there, just copy and paste your question back in there, and then I'll get to it as we move through. I'm going to start with Greg S here. So Greg S says, follow up on Steve G's question. So I'm not sure what I've had a hard time stopping the backswing when I'm on the course. Stopping the backswing when I'm on the course playing for real. I find myself reaching back for extra rotation, which causes me to lift my body, head, and sway backwards a bit. How do I find the top of the backswing without overreaching, especially when I'm nervous and want to get extra distance? So it's all about maintaining your spine angle. So I would just try to feel like as you're going up to the top here, I use a shorter club actually. I just try to feel like you're actually getting closer to the ball a little bit as you're going down, because we don't want to do this, because if we stand up, our shoulders level out, right? And now I have to do something, I have to compensate to get back down. And that's usually going to end up it's just not going to end up very well. So what we want to do is make sure that we feel like we're getting closer as we're going up to the top, and that we're really loading up as we're going to the top. And our lead shoulder, so this is our lead shoulder here, is staying steeper to the ground. So it's going lower as you're going up to the top. And that's actually going to help you to get your hands higher, and it's going to be more powerful. Doing this is not as powerful as doing this, because now, hopefully I don't hit that, now a steeper shoulder angle is getting your hands to go higher. And the higher your hands get, the more space you have to accelerate the club. So staying steeper in your shoulder angle is actually going to help you to get more distance. I know you're trying to get a lot of rotation to get more distance, but the rotation and the height of your hands is what's going to allow you to get the most distance. So there's a great drill. It's called a shoulder to shoulder drill. And I've said this in every office hour so far. The website has an excellent search engine. If you search a keyword, it will find about any video that has something to do with that keyword. So in the upper right-hand corner of the page, I'm not sure if it's on this page, but on about any page on the website, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a search window. Search shoulder to shoulder, 3 words, 2, not the number 2, but TO. That video there is really good. It gets you to where you're getting comfortable with the steeper shoulders in the backswing and then in the downswing as well. So I would check out that video. That one's going to help you quite a bit. All right. So Eldridge says, what is a good way to maintain your spine angle through the golf swing? Well, I just talked about that. Now, I'm not sure if you're talking about from like this spine angle or this spine angle, but I'll go over both of them real quick. So we just talked about this spine angle. So the one you want to think about is that your left shoulder is going lower and that you're staying in your posture. Feel like your chest is getting a little bit closer to the ground as you're going to the top. If you watch about any professional golfer, if you draw a line on top of their head from down the line, go into V1 golf. There's tons of professional models on there. Most professionals, you're going to see that their head actually gets a little bit lower in the backswing. So we got a couple inches lower. The best ball strikers out there are getting a little bit lower in the backswing, and then in transition, they're getting a little bit lower. And about when those hands reach waist level, they kind of level out, but they're about 6 inches, 4 or 5, 6 inches lower than where they started at address, because they're really loading up into the ground. They're getting their hands really, really low so they can get it to whip through impact. So don't feel like you have to stay perfectly, because in reality, what usually happens is when you're trying to keep this angle so perfect is that you actually come up out of it because your momentum is going this way. So it's actually better to feel like you're loading up and you're actually getting lower, because in reality, what's going to happen is you're probably going to either stay stationary or you're going to get a little bit closer, which is good. So I would try to feel like as you're loading up, you're actually getting lower to the ground. And then this spine angle this way, if you're talking this one, trying to maintain that, you're going to want to work through the stable fluid spine section for that. So nose behind the ball drill is one that I really, really like. So that's one where, if we angle this down a little bit, if I'm going to take a club here and put it on the ground. All right, so I'm going to straddle this nose behind the ball drill. So I'm going to set up with my belt buckle a little bit ahead of that, and then my nose a little bit behind that. And that's going to put me in a really good spine angle here at address. So my spine angle is pointing just to the inside of my foot here. And then as I go to the top, I want to keep my nose behind that. Now, I don't want to go like this, but I want to keep my nose behind that as I'm turning to the top. And now you can see I'm in a good spine angle here at the top. And then as I'm coming into impact, I want to get my nose pretty much right down on top of that, right at impact. And then from there, I can come all the way through. So if at any point I come into the swing and my nose is way up here, well, I know I'm not angled away enough as I'm coming into impact. I'm going to tend to slide into the ball, flip the club as I'm coming through. But if I come in and I stay with my nose either a little bit behind it or on it, well, now I can put myself in a really good position to get this club to release out in front. So that's a great drill to do. I would just do that, go up to the top and pause, go into impact and pause, go into the full finish. And then I would try to do some slow fluid practice swings, practicing that same thing, getting that spine angle ingrained. It takes work. You're not going to be able to just automatically do it. If you're someone who's already all over the place and that's what you're comfortable with right now, it's going to take some hard work to correct that. So it just takes repetition and some time to ingrain the right movements. You got to be able to do it in a practice swing first at full speed and then try to add the golf ball. One of the biggest mistakes that I see is that we want everything right now. And we think as long as I know what to do, I can just go do it. But that's not the reality of the situation. The reality is that the golf swing happens like that. The downswing is very, very quick. So, you have to train your body to create the movement. And if you don't, you might wonder why we recommend 1,000 reps or 3,000 reps. It sounds crazy, but that's what it takes to fully ingrain a movement. Now, through that amount of reps that you do, it may, you may get into the positions, many times, and you may think, oh, I got it, I'm good. But that's not the reality either. You may get into the positions, but you have to fully ingrain that to where it's second nature, where it would almost feel completely weird or awkward to do it any other way. That's where you want to get to. And you want to get to the point where you're doing it automatically, so that when you go on to another piece of the system, you're already doing that other thing. And when you move on to the other piece, you don't forget about that thing that you just learned, and it just doesn't become a waste of time that you just did. So, we talk about a lot of reps, and that's mainly, some people, it's going to take 100 reps, and it's because they're already pretty comfortable with it. Some people, if it's really, really uncomfortable for you, then it may take a lot more reps. It could take 10,000 reps. It's just, it just depends on the person. But we found, with the drills that we given you, when we talk about the amount of reps, that is what we found for most people. But you're going to have to gauge that, on your own whenever we're working on things. Or, if you'd like a little bit more help, we do offer unlimited swing reviews. I still have a few spots open right now. I'm getting pretty filled up though. So if you would like to work with me now, that would be the time, because I'm going to get filled up probably by the time Master rolls around. And once I get filled up, I'm actually going to raise my pricing up, because I can't really take any more students, and any students that I do take on, I want to take on a higher price point. So keep that in mind if you're wanting to work with an instructor such as myself or Robin or even Tommy, if you want to work with him too. All right. So Gary says, I don't understand why dropping the club into the slot is better than just putting it in. I'm not really sure. So, I think that's just an expression, dropping it into the slot, putting it into the slot. To me, that's really the same thing. But people talk about dropping into the slot because the arms and everything, that you feel like it's kind of dropping in there. Whereas a lot of people, they come down steep, they're like this. So in order to get that club to go in the stop, they have to go like this. And we don't want to be doing that, because now we're going to be early extending, we're going to be flipping. So to get this club to drop into the slot or put into the slot, we want to make sure that we're shallowing it out and that we're turning into impact. So that way it's working down. And I'm trying to get it to line up with the camera. There we go. So there it is, right in the slot. Boom, right there in the impact. All right. Joel says, due to back injury, backswing is LTD help. I'm not sure what LTD means. But, as far as, if you have a back injury, you can only do, what you're capable of. I will say that, if you have a back injury, a golf instructor is not somewhere you would want to go to get help with your golf game. It's going to be like a doctor or a chiropractor of some sort. So, as a golf instructor, I'm going to be able to say, oh, yeah, if your back is hurting, you're only going to be able to turn this much. You're only going to have this much range of motion. Well, that's really all I can do for you. But if you want help with an injury or whatever, depending on what the injury is, if it's just like a sore back, typically, I've had all kinds of sore back stuff and things like that. And I found really the only way to help with it is to just take time off. I know that kind of sucks. You want to go out and play, but you got to figure out, is it worth the pain or whatever. So taking a week or two off is typically, the best thing for it. But if it's a more serious thing, I don't know what you got going on with your back. You're going to want to talk to a doctor for sure. So David G says, I have the same issue as Greg S. Range is good, but taking it to the course is another story. So, when we get out on the course, things change a little bit. When you're out on the range, you're able to get in a groove. You hit ball after ball. You're hitting the same club over and over. A lot of times I don't even see people hitting at a target or anything. They're just aimlessly hitting balls out there, and they're talking about how they're hitting it great, which, maybe it feels great on the club face and the ball flight looks good and everything. But if you really want to take what you're doing on the range to the course, you have to make your range practice a lot like what's going on out on the course. So what I like to do is a training exercise. If I go out to the course to practice some technique and things like that, or from distance training or anything like that, at the end of the range session with the last 30 balls, what I'd recommend doing is simulating what's happening out on the golf course. Play 9 holes with the last 30 balls or so, or many holes as you can. And what that means is, think of a course that you know really, really well, or a course that you really like, and play the course out on the driving range. So if the first hole, let's say it's a par 4, 400-yard par 4 driver hole, just visualize the hole in front of you. Tee up the ball, visualize that hole in front of you, hit your tee shot, just like, go through your shot routine, hit your tee shot. And you know what, if it goes straight down the middle and it's a normal distance for you, let's say you normally hit it 250, well, your next shot is going to be a 150-yard shot, and then you would hit whatever club you hit 150 yards, and maybe you chunked it and it only went 100 yards. Well, now you have a 50-yard pitch shot. I would come out and I would hit a 50-yard pitch shot, go through your routine, visualize everything in front of you. And, the nice part is, the fun part is that, you're not going to be putting. You make all the putts. Just imagine that you make all of the putts, and then it's fun. You can shoot a really, really low scores doing it. So that's what I would recommend doing, and just play the whole course out. If you go way to the right and slice one, I know most ranges don't have, a rough end fairway there to hit off of, but if they do, hit it out of the rough. Or, if you think you're in the trees, you're going to have to hit a low one. Use your imagination and try to hit a low shot out of there. Go through your whole routine and everything. So just try to imagine playing the course out on the range, and you'll be surprised how well that helps you translate what you're doing in your practice out on the range. That's what I really like to do. It's a great way to prepare for tournaments as well. All right, so Don P says, let me... I'm guessing that's not my dad. He's Don P as well. So if it is my dad, hey, Dad. But if not, Don P, nice to meet you. I have a difficult time releasing the driver. The face is a little open. I have no problem with irons. So this is fairly normal. A lot of times, timing the driver is a little bit different than with other clubs. If you're having trouble closing the face, or getting that face to square up, there's actually a great video that addresses this exact thing. It's about face rotation in the golf swing. So I would go in the search bar and search face rotation. Be a great drill for you. But what he's going to talk about in that drill is essentially, so if you watch here, if I hold this up, I'm going to have a neutral grip here. You're going to be able to tell. Let me use a different club. It's a little easier to tell with the putter here. So if I have my palm facing up to the sky and I have this putter here facing up to the sky, this is a neutral grip. So the back of my hand is matching the putter face. So if I bow my wrist, you can see how that face closes. If I bend that wrist back, you can see how the face closes. So that's what you want to feel like in the downswing, that you're bowing that wrist, you're turning that handle. It's almost like you're on a motorcycle here, right? So you're turning that handle down, and that's going to help you get that club face to square up a little bit better. So that's why I try to feel. I come down, do a couple of these where you're about halfway down, where you turn the face down, and then do one where you're a practice swing where you feel like you're turning that face down as you're coming through there. And what's probably going to happen is you're going to hit some left, and that's just because you're overdoing it, and that's fine. And then at that point, all you got to do is just ease off of that a little bit. So I would check out that drill. That's a really good drill for you. And anybody who's having trouble getting that face, you're leaving that face open, ball is starting out to the right every time, then I would definitely check that out. All right, so Daniel A says, does the move apply to chips? and pitches on tightly mown grass seems like it would expose the leading edge of the club and dig. So yes, you do want to shallow out the club and square the face. That's basically what the move is. The move is, it's kind of misleading a little bit because the move just isn't one move. It's a couple things. So the move is one, it's shallowing out the club in the downswing. So as you're going up the top, you're shallowing out the club in the downswing. And then the second piece of it is what I was just talking about, the face rotation, is squaring that face early so that you can rotate into impact and get forward shaftling. So in a chip or a pitching situation, even where it's a shorter swing, you still want to be shallowing out the club. So you don't want to be going and chopping down into it. You still want to be shallowing out the club, but it's not necessarily going to be to the extent that you are at the backswing, because typically most people don't have too much of an issue with shallowing out the club with a wedge, with a short shot like this. It's when they get way up here, and then they want to come down like this. But if you want to come from the inside and get that club face squaring up and turning down as you're coming through there. You don't want to be bringing it up and then chopping straight down on top of it. So in a sense, yes, you do want to shallow the club, square the face early, and release the club out in front when you're chipping and pitching. But you may be, if you're hitting a lot off a hosel or things like that, you're probably overdoing it and getting the club to work too much from the inside. Or maybe you're not doing it at all and you're bringing the club down really steep, and then you got to do that, which is going to cause you to shank as well. So you want to make sure that you're coming from the inside and turning that handle down. If you're exposing the leading edge, if you're digging, there's a couple things you want to look at. One, your ball position. What I see a lot of times is this ball position gets way too far back in the stance. So if I were to be pitching, and that ball was back here, I see this all the time. That leading edge, I'm going to have to time this really, really good. You can hit good pitch shots doing that, but man, your timing has to be right at the golf ball. You don't have any margin for error whatsoever. So what you want to do is move that up a little bit to where it's kind of in the middle, maybe just a little bit back of middle. And then there, now I got room to move the club through there. And then what I can also do is I can open this face up just a little bit. And what that does is it exposes the bounce. So if we watch here, here's a square club face. And then if I open it, now you can see I'm using a little bit of this bounce here. It's exposing that. So if you watch here, there's square. And if I open it, you can see how the leading edge is raised up. So if I just open that up a little bit, now that's going to help the club kind of skid through the turf, and I'm going to be able to hit some easier shots with it. So that's what I'd recommend. Just open that up just a little bit, get that a little bit further up in the stance. And then you still want that club to be working from the inside and the club face squaring up as you're coming through there. And then that's allowing you to hit some better chip shots. All right. So James S. says, in my bag, I have driver, fairway woods, hybrids, and irons. It's most people. I do too. Other than adjusting my spine to accommodate for club length, changing ball position, and hitting up on the driver, is there any other changes to the basic swing necessary to get the most out of these clubs? I seem to have problems making clean contact when changing from club to club. This is a new thing I started since I started the distance class. So I would say, I went to, some TPI training. Not sure if you're familiar with that is, but it's Titleist Performance Institute. And Greg Rose is, one of the main guys there. And he's not a golf instructor, but I mean, he knows a ton about golf instruction. He's a biomechanics expert, I would say in the golf swing. And he talked about how, and I agree with this, how there's basically three golf swings. You have your driver swing, which is what you're working on in the distance master class. So this would be, you're hitting up on the ball, you're swinging a little bit longer because you're going for maximum distance. You're lifting that left heel up off the ground when you're getting your maximum rotation because you're trying to go for as much speed as possible. So that's the first swing. The next swing is your iron swing, or any shot that you're really hitting off the turf. So this could be your hybrids, your 3-woods, your iron swing, full swing, all out kind of wedges. So that's basically, it's a toned down swing. You're going for a little bit more control with it because you're not trying to hit it as far as you possibly can. You're trying to hit it a set distance and number, and you're also trying to make great contact and everything. So there's that swing, and that's the swing where you're hitting down on the ball, getting that ball before the turf. And, and that ball position is going to be, a little head of middle, for everybody. It can be a little bit different, but I like it to be basically straight down from my left ear, pretty much with all those shots, maybe with a wedge, one ball back, with longer irons and hybrids and fairway woods, maybe one ball forward, but that's a good place for it. And then the next swing is kind of your controlled, what he called was a finesse wedge shot. So this is even more about control and not about speed at all, because we're still trying to get some speed with the irons. So we definitely want to hit our irons far, but not so much as we do with our driver. So it's kind of a hybrid between the two. And then you have your finesse wedge swing, which is more of making really good contact, getting some forward shaft lean, and really controlling how far that ball goes and the different flights that you can have with it. So that's basically the 3 swings that it comes down to. So those are really the only adjustments that I would make. But yeah, when you're talking about going from club to club to club, you're basically, most of your swings are going to be that middle one where, your approach shots are mostly going to be that. And then, any shot that you're hitting off a tee with a driver, or even with a 3-wood, if you're really trying to launch your 3-wood out there, you would use that same kind of swing where you're hitting up on the ball a little bit. And then you have your finesse wedge shots. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. And then you have, kind of like pitch shots and chip shots and things like that. But as far as full, mostly full swing shots, those are going to be the 3 ones that you'll be going to be. But really, as far as the Top Speed Golf system is concerned, all of the pieces are the same thing. You still want to make sure that your spine is stable. You still want to make sure that you're getting a good shoulder turn with all of them. Now it's going to be more so with that driver swing than you would on that finesse swing. But all of the pieces of the Top Speed Golf system are the same throughout those. It's just kind of a different mindset, and where the club is coming into the ball is going to be a little bit different. So hopefully that helps. I would go out to the range kind of with that mindset and see if that helps you a little bit. All right. So Armand says, in my takeaway, I take away toe up. Toe up to up is still correct. Sorry, my dog's making a sound there. Not really sure what was going on there. But so the takeaway, yeah, I mean, honestly, it doesn't really matter because if you watch a lot of pros, you're going to see them come up, and that toe is going to be like that. You're going to see that, and you're going to see that. You're going to see all kinds of that. So what I would say is bring the club up naturally, whatever feels natural to you. I wouldn't think about where the toe is pointing or anything. I would just feel like whatever is natural to you and gets you into that good position up at the top. Now, if I will say that if you are going to change it, it has to be to improve what's happening at impact. So if you find that you hit the ball much better when the club is like this in this position versus like this, then, go with it. I mean, do what helps you hit the ball better. But in the grand scheme of things, and, it's not, the takeaway is really not that important as far as where the toe is pointing, bringing it up hooded or bringing it up super open. It's more about getting in this right position at the top. Whatever gets you in that right position at the top, that's what you should do. So that's what I would focus on. I would just focus on bringing the club up, whatever feels naturally, and really focus on getting in that good position at the top, because that's what gets you down to a good impact position. That's more important this at the top, where you are at the top, is much more important than how you got there. So as long as you're getting in that position at the top, you're going to be in much better shape to get that ball down to impact. So toe up, hooded, a little bit open, it's all fine. It's just whatever works the best for you. All right, so Martin says, how do I successfully pitch or chip from 30 yards with no obstructions between me and the green? Well, that's a good question. It's kind of a loaded question for the most part. What I would say is we have two sections on the website. One is our wedge system. You're going to want to work through that system. And then we also have our chipping mastery course. So I could sit here and do an hour whole thing on how to pitch and chip it. But what I would recommend is just going to those sections, and that you're going to get a whole entire course on how to do that. I will say the difference between a pitch and a chip shot is they're not the same shot, obviously, right? So a chip is a shot that you hit and it's intended to get on the green as quickly as possible and start rolling out toward the hole. A pitch shot is going to have some air under it. It's going to have some spin. It's intended to carry most of the way to the hole with spin and stop, somewhere around the hole. So that's basically the difference between the shots. So you have to decide which shot is the best one for where you're at. So I would say if you're 30 yards away, most likely you're going to be using a pitch shot and not a chip shot, unless you have a ton of green in front of you and you're able to get that ball on the green and rolling right away. So if you have the option from, if you're, 8 feet off the green and there's tons of green and the rest of it's just green in front of you between you and the pin, the higher percentage play, the play that's going to get you most of the time closest to the hole, and it's going to have the least chance of hitting a poor shot, is going to be that chip shot. So that's what I definitely look at. But I'd work through those courses. That's what's really going to help you to iron out your short game for sure. All right, so David D, let me get a drink here, says I'm a new VIP member, and I don't seem to find an icon or setting to cast videos to my big screen TV. Clay's instruction videos. As a new member, well, so let's address that real quick. As far, the videos are intended to watch on your laptop, your mobile device. If you have a browser on your TV, you can cast the videos to that. There's nothing on the website that's going to tell you this is how you get it on your TV. But if you have a browser on your TV, you can log into the website. If it supports Vimeo video, which we've been told by Vimeo, not all TV browsers do. But if it supports Vimeo video, then you should be able to watch the video. So you would just go to the browser on your TV, log into the website, just like you would on your computer, your laptop, or your phone or your tablet. Log in the same way, and then you would just navigate the website. There's also, you can use your TV as an extension of your PC by hooking up a VGA cable, or if you have an HDMI cable from your laptop to your big screen TV, you could do that. You could, if you have like Chromecast or something like that, or Apple TV, you can broadcast what's on your laptop onto your TV. So what I'd recommend doing is, if you have any of those options and you're not sure how to do it, the best way to do it, because I can't really demonstrate that on here, would be to, sorry, my phone's buzzing here. Forgot to put it on do not disturb. Sorry about that. There we go. Is go to YouTube and just search that. Search how to use Chromecast to watch computer on TV or something like that. And you'll find tons of videos demonstrating you how to do that. All righty. All right. So James L says, to make a power turn, I shall move my hands and shoulders first, hip and waist afterwards, or just move them simultaneously when I take away. That's a good question. It's a question I get several times. So basically, the first move is what you're going to want to feel, is that the arms and the shoulders and everything are are starting first. So you're going to want to feel like it's mostly this in the beginning. That's to start the swing. But then, it's very, very close to right after that these hips are going to start turning. And it's not going to seem like it necessarily on camera or what you see a lot of professionals do, but it is happening. And the reason why it doesn't seem like it is because the shoulders are turning, double what the hips are. So the hips are turning a lot slower and not as much as what the hips are. So you're definitely going to be, I wouldn't necessarily think about, I got to get my shoulders going and then I got to get my hips going. What I would feel like is that your hips are free. There's nothing restricting them from moving. That's what I would feel like. So I would set up to the ball, and as you're feeling your shoulders turning, let your hips go. Don't restrict your hips and then let them go. Just let the hips be free and allow the shoulders to turn, so you can get that maximum shoulder turn there. So I think it's best not to think about the most important part of it, which is going to be the shoulders moving. Now, if you look on camera and you see that your hips are restricted, like you're only turning your hips about that much in the backswing, that's not going to be enough. You need to get those hips turning at least to 45 degrees. If you're really struggling with distance, I have no problem with you turning the hips 60 degrees. I mean, that's completely fine. You can only get so much of a separation between your hips and your shoulders. For most people, it's going to be around 45 degrees or even less than that. So let those hips go and allow yourself to get that big shoulder turn. All right. So Chester says, help. I seem to have missed something. I frequently 2 or 3 times around end up and ... He didn't finish. See if I can find. So it doesn't look like he finished that up. So I'm not really sure what he ended up with, but we'll see if it comes up later on down the road here. So Rod P says, in the power turn section, no mention is made of getting the club high. All it says is complete the back turn. Am I missing something? As I'm not getting into the same positions. Thanks. That's a good question. As far as the power turn is concerned, probably don't see much of that. But really, what's more important than anything is getting the shoulders to turn. But there is a difference between turning and having your hands kind of down here versus up here. If your hands are higher, there's pros and cons to it, right? So if your hands are higher, you're going to have more space to accelerate the club, and you can possibly get more distance. But now, if your hands are higher, now they have further to go to get this club back on plane. Whereas if you're flatter, your hands are here. Now the club and everything, they're already on plane, but it's you're not getting that maximum distance. So if you look at it, compare someone like Matt Kuchar versus Bubba Watson, right? So Bubba Watson's the extreme. He's super vertical. He's way, way up here. And if you watch him in the downswing, he really brings the club behind him to allow him to get that club to shallow out. But Watson, year after year after year, is he's either the top driver of the ball or he's always like top 5 he's been there forever. So obviously distance is not an issue with him. And if you look at him, you don't look at him like he's a super strong guy. He's kind of a skinny, lanky guy. So, but you look at a guy like Matt Kuchar, obviously he's won a ton of money on tour, but definitely not one of the longest hitters. You can argue that it's more consistent to be flatter, but honestly, I would say that for most amateurs, it's just better to be a little bit more vertical because you're going to be able to get more distance, and that's really what most amateurs struggle with. You're not going to be 100. You're going to be just as accurate, most likely, with a flat swing as you are with a vertical swing. So I wouldn't be afraid of getting a little bit more vertical. But you're not missing anything. It's not something that's mentioned a ton in the power turn section. It's really more about the turn than anything else. But that's an added bonus there. Getting those hands high is definitely something that I think is going to help you. But if you look at guys that are like a happy medium, they're going to be guys like Adam Scott, Rory McIlroy. They're basically right in between a very vertical swing and a very flat swing. which is also a good spot to be in. So, all right. So Ron W says, what is a good way to keep from flipping the wrists when hitting the ball? I've heard somewhere about knuckles down at impact. So yeah, the knuckles down at impact. Let me get a drink real quick. So yeah, that is going to help you to do that. That's basically what we talked about in the move section. So there's all kinds of reasons why you might flip the club. One of the biggest ones I see is the steepness in the downswing. So if you're flipping and if you look at your swing, your shaft is kind of straight up and down or pretty close to vertical in the downswing, what you're going to have to do in the downswing to impact is you're going to have to stand up to get that club to come back down on plane and to shallow out late. Otherwise, if you stay right here and you continue down, you're just going to chop down into the ball or you're going to swing over the top. So you have to stand up out of it to shallow out the club late. And then that, when you're standing up, you're bringing your hands further away from the ball, and that causes the club to flip. So you can see here I'm standing up and that club is flipping. That's basically what's happening there. So what you want to do is you want to get this club to shallow out. This is what we talked about in the move section. So shallowing out the club and then turning that face. So if you talk about the tennis racket drill, that's 1.3 from the move. That's shallowing out and then turning the knuckles down. This is an exaggeration, right? We're trying to exaggerate it. That face is super closed. And then from there, all I have to do is rotate into impact. Now I have a crazy amount of forward shaft lean. I'm not flipping. So if you watch here, I'm turning that handle down. The club is shallowed out. And I'm coming into impact. You can see I have a ton of forward shaft lean here. That wrist is bent down. So you can see that's knuckles down. That's squaring up the club face. So you can't really see the club face, but you can see how that's a neutral wrist. That's bowed left wrist. And I have tons of forward shaft lean here. See how that face is square? If I keep my wrist angles the same and I get tons of forward shaft lean, that face is wide open. It's pointing way over there. But if I bow my wrist and turn the handle down, now that face is square and it's pointing straight forward here. So that's what you want to do is to get into impact. So if you're flipping, the first place I would look at is I would look at the move. I'd make sure that you're shallowing out the club, squaring that club face early. The other thing I would look at is if you're casting the club. So I look at your lag. If you're releasing from the top, so from the top of the swing, the angle between your lead arm here and the shaft, if that's getting bigger to start the downswing, that means you're casting. And if you are casting, releasing that club from the top, it's going to be near impossible to not flip at impact. You're basically guaranteed to scoop or flip at impact. So you got to be generating lag to this max lag position in the beginning of the downswing and then releasing it out in front. So I take a look at that. If you're casting the club, you're going to want to work through the top speed lag section. Then the last piece is if you're shallowing the club, squaring up the face early, you're generating lag, and you're still flipping through impact, that's going to be straight line release. And you're just going to be, that's mainly going to be working on how the hands deliver the club to the ball at impact. So that's feeling pet the grass. So you've probably heard about the pet the grass drill, feeling like you're petting the blades of the grass as you're coming through. That's the same thing. You're doing it with the other hand. That's the knuckles down. I'm petting the grass here with my fingers, and I'm releasing that out in front. So I would take a look at how you're releasing the club as well to try and get some forward shaft lean. So those are basically the big three. And again, if you're not sure about any of this stuff, you know, it's hard to look at your swing on camera and know what you're looking at or know what you're looking for. We're here to help you. You know, I wish I could work with every single one of you, but you know, I can only work with a limited number of people. So if you'd like to work with me and work on this stuff, be sure to sign up for my swing reviews. Like I said, I am filling up here pretty quick. So I picked up a few people in the last few days here. So there's only so many spots available yet. So make sure to get in there and grab one. All right. So Pierce says the squat or whatever it is called on the takeaway, is it done as you ground your right foot? In other words, not to come in the ball, not too steep. So let me talk a little bit about what it means to basically squat down into the ground a little bit. Now, I'm not talking, turn this down just a little bit more. I'm not talking in the backswing that you're doing this. Like that's not what you're doing. What you're doing, you're only lowering a few inches in the backswing. What you see in the best ball strikers is you're lowering a few inches in the backswing and then maybe a few inches in the downswing as well. Or maybe you're staying pretty level in the backswing and then you're lowering more in the downswing. People do it different ways, but I found the most consistent ball strikers are usually lowering a little bit in the backswing and then lowering a little bit in the downswing. So that's going to come from your ankles. It's going to come from your knees. It's going to come from bending over at the waist. Even comes from the neck, kind of bending down a little bit. So all of it's not, it doesn't take much from all of those to get down a couple inches. It's not this. It's as you're going up to the top, you can watch my ankles. I'm bending down with my ankles a little bit. My knees going forward a little bit. I'm bending over at the waist a little bit more, and my neck's kind of going down. So you can see I just bent down like 5 inches there, but it didn't take much from all of those to get down to that point. I just say overall, you want to feel like your chest is getting closer to the ball as you're going up to the top. The worst thing that can happen is that you just overdo it. And at that point, all you have to do is ease off of it. So what I find most people, they feel like they're doing that, but in reality, they're mainly just staying level. And it's because the momentum is like what I was talking about earlier. As you're swinging up to the top, there's momentum going in this direction because the club and everything's moving up that way. So you're going to tend to want to stand up a little bit. So you're kind of fighting physics a little bit because your momentum. So if you feel like you're going down when your momentum's going this way, a lot of times people are going to stay stationary or just go down a little bit. So that's what I try to feel like as you're going up to the top, is that your chest is getting lower. And it's not necessarily you're just squatting your butt down and going up the top, because it comes from the ankles, it comes from the knees, comes from the hips, and it comes from the neck a little bit bending down. So keep that in mind when you're working on that. All right. All right, so Gavin says, Gavin L asks, what's the best way to get better mentally? Because I have a great swing and fundamentals, but what gets in the way of shooting in the low 70s or high 60s is my mental game. I will tell you, I'm not an expert on the mental game. We do have a great mental game section on the website. Thad, Dr. Thad is a member of the website, and he was kind enough to do some awesome videos for us. He is an expert in this stuff. He's a sports psychologist, works at Oklahoma State University, worked with Ricky Fowler, a lot of the great players that have gone through there. So I definitely check out those videos. He's got some great stuff in there. But what I would say is when you're out on the golf course, nothing is the end of the world. So it's just golf. So, no need to get truly, really, really upset about anything. You could be doing a lot worse doing something else, right? So I always try to stay positive when you're out on the course. Try not to have any negative thoughts. I know that's really, really difficult. I suffer from it as well. I have negative thoughts. I try to keep it positive and keep it fun. And when you do that, you typically play better golf. That'd be my best advice for you. And the other thing is people that get too many swing thoughts. So I would just stick to 1 or 2 swing thoughts at most. If you're doing 2 swing thoughts, a backswing thought and a downswing thought is all you want to have. You don't want to have 2 backswing thoughts and 2 downswing thoughts. So I would just keep it really, really simple. Find something that maybe it's something that you're working on, in your technique, and you just kind of want to think about that. Myself personally, I typically have an issue with getting a little quick at the top. So for me, I like to think full backswing, full follow through. And if I do that, I typically hit good shots, because a lot of times I kind of finish with an abbreviated swing. So it helps me hit good, free flowing, great speed shots. And that's what I would recommend. That's what really works for me, but everybody's a little bit different. A different swing thought's going to work different for you than it would for me. So I just find the thing that really works well for you. Like for some people, it's get to my left side, or, get loaded up, or, if you're someone who's hitting it off the heel every single time, it may be your thought is to try and hit it off the toe to try and get that strike closer to the center. So just you guys find what works best for you. Keep it really, really simple and stay positive with it, and go to our mental game section. And also, and basically any book by Bob Rotella is really good as well if you're looking for a good read. I know he has a lot of books on Audible as well. You can listen to him. So definitely check that out. All right, Paul B says, how do you jam the bent right elbow into the rib cage with slowing the club down? Rib cages move down or move slowly, or does the bent right arm elbow not have any friction against the side? So I wouldn't say that you're jamming it in there. It's probably not the choice of words that I would use. I would say it's just it's basically coming into the right side. So what's happening is you're shallowing out the club, which is part of it. That right elbow is coming into the inside. I wouldn't say it's jamming in there, you know. It's just it's slowly coming in there, and it's gonna, you know, as you're coming into impact, you know, a lot of times, you know, you may have your right elbows kind of out away from you a little bit, but more or less it's going to be pretty attached right here, and that means you're in the right impact position. What I see a lot of times with people is that right elbow gets away from the body. Now, this is an exaggeration, but the right elbow gets out away from the body. It's a flip, right? And it's a chicken wing. It's an over-the-top swing, and that's what's happening there. If you get someone if we talk about an actual situation that I see all the time that is an exaggeration, it looks more, it's more like this, basically. So we're flipping, that right arm's really pushing through. It's kind of out away from the body here a little bit. But you look at most professional golfers, the body's going to be opened up. That right elbow is going to be mostly pretty close to your side. If you have a little bit more, you're carrying a little bit more side stuff, like I am. You're not like a skinny trim tour player like Adam Scott. You might be, you might be a little bit further away. But if you're like me, which I think a lot of people are getting up there in age, maybe putting on a little bit of weight. If you have a little bit of belly like me, you might be a little bit more up against your, up against your side there as you're coming in. So I would look at, there's some great videos on the website. Search any stuck video, any video on getting stuck, because if that right elbow is getting behind you, you're getting stuck. There's some great drills to get that elbow ahead. And that's also a great drill to feel like it's coming down. Anything on the right elbow is going to be good. So I would take a look at all those drills. Just performing the move in general is going to force you. If you're shallowing out the club, it's going to be really hard to have your elbow, because your arms just don't bend this way. Your wrist doesn't bend that way. So if you're shallowing out the club nicely, that right elbow is going to be in a pretty good position. And if you come down at that point and then you bring the arm out away, that's going to be, you're going to want to just focus on keeping that right arm out of it a little bit more and stop trying to push the club through too early. That you're going to want to work on your release a little bit. So I would definitely take a look at those things. Eldridge H says, trying to get into impact, I hit the ball at the equator instead of hitting down on the ball. What drill will help with impact? I try to practice 9-3 drill. So I'm not sure you're hitting. I mean, in general, you're going to be striking the ball maybe a little bit. You're never going to be hitting the top of the ball. So if you're coming down and the club is striking the top of the ball, so in order for that to happen, you basically have to have no loft, and you got to be hitting down on it. So even though you're hitting down on it, you're still hitting underneath the ball because the club has loft. So if you watch, basically this is what's happening. So my club's moving down, but I have loft on the face here. So the club's coming down. It's still underneath the equator. So let me do this. So now you can kind of see the equator of the ball, and that's coming down, and you're still hitting underneath the ball. So if you're hitting the equator of the ball, then you're topping it. I'm not sure if that's what you're asking or not, But if you're looking for some drills to hit better down on the ball, there's a couple things I would look at. One, I would look at your compression line and make sure that you are slightly angled away. So you may be coming into the ball and you're more like this. So when you're doing that, that means that you're hanging back and you're not staying on top of the ball. So you may want to try and get a little bit more stacked on top of it and have your compression line to be slightly angled away instead of very much angled away. We have a great topping and chunking course. You're going to work on weight shift. You're going to work on the proper position to get to an impact to stop chunking and topping, because it sounds like that may be what you're struggling with. I'd work through our stop chunking and topping course, and I'd also take a look at your compression line and make sure that you're just slightly angled away. Just a refresher on what the compression line is. That's going to be at impact. If you draw a line from your ankle to your hip to your lead shoulder socket all the way down, all of those should be in a straight line, slightly angled away from the target. We don't want to have those in a straight line and way ahead, leaning way forward, because that's going to be chopping down into the ball. We don't want to be too far back, especially with an iron, anything off the turf, because that sounds like that might be happening with you, is that you're going to get that club working on its way up to the ball. We don't want to do that when we're hitting the ball off the ground. You may start chunking it, or may thinning it or topping it. With a driver, it's okay to be a little bit more angled away because we are hitting up on the ball. It's up on a tee. But anything off the turf, you don't want to be doing that. And then the other thing is that we don't want to have our hip bumped out. So if we're coming into impact and my ankle, you can't really see my ankle, but let's say this is a straight line down to my ankle. Well, now you can see my hip's bumped out. My hip is out of the line. So I'm not going to be able to rotate if my hips are bumped out. So I need to get my hip turning back and out of the way so that I can rotate and be able to release this club out in front. So I definitely take a look at those. All right, so let's keep going here. Oh man, it's almost 10 already. Like I said, I'm going to answer as many questions as I can. It looks like there's a lot of questions here, so I'll probably go till about 10:30 or so, and then we'll wrap it up then. So Chris W says, I'm a 20+ handicap working on my swing. How far along should I be before spending money on fitting to get new irons? I'm worried I spend the money and then my swing changes enough to where I would need different setup clubs. I wouldn't even bother with getting fitted with clubs. If you're a beginner golfer, 20+ handicap or somewhat beginner, and you're really working on your swing, I wouldn't worry about getting new clubs. You're going to adapt. And honestly, it's not going to make that big of a difference in the way that you hit the ball. I mean, it's not going to make as much a difference as what most people might think. It can make a small difference, but honestly, typically it doesn't usually make that big of a difference. So just as kind of a blanket statement here, you're going to be much better off spending the money on lessons or, being a member of this website, in-person lessons, unlimited swing reviews, going to a clinic or something like that. Your money is going to be much, much better spent there to improve your game than it will be to get fitted and buy a new set of irons. I will definitely stand by that for sure. So I wouldn't even worry about getting your clubs fitted or spending the money on that until you're really, really comfortable with where you're at with your golf swing, which for most people is pretty much never. But until you're relatively comfortable, I wouldn't even worry about that at all, getting some new clubs. All right. So Nicholas says, I recently realized that I was swaying my backswing, which I think limited my hip turn going back as well as limiting weight shift. Can you give me some things that I should be feeling? I know I got it right. All right. So that's a good question. So you're exactly right. If you're swaying in the backswing, you're going to have trouble shifting your weight. The reason is that when you sway in the backswing, now it's going to be harder for me to time my downswing weight shift. It's usually going to be way too late because really we want to be our weight, our center of mass needs to be going forward before we complete the backswing. So you're building up the pressure in your trail foot, and you're moving forward, and the downswing starts, and then you're there. Or if you're swaying, man, you're going to have a hard time getting there. So what I would try to feel like is that when you're shifting your weight in the backswing, that nothing's getting on the outside of your foot. So when you're shifting your weight, you don't want to feel anything on the outside of your foot, because if you sway, you're going to start to feel the pressure on the outside of your foot. So you want to feel that pressure on the inside of your foot. Make sure that stays on the inside of your foot. And when you do that, you're going to push your hip back. So you want to push your hip back and feel that weight on the inside of your foot as you're turning to the top. And that's what's really going to help you get, those are the feelings that you want to have. There's a video on the website. It's in the power turn, or no, it's in the stable fluid spine section. It's I believe it's in the last section, but it's on the, believe it's on reverse spine angle or reverse pivot. Take a look at that drill. That drill is going to help you to getting that. So go to the instruction tab, Top Speed Golf System, stable fluid spine, go to the last level. I believe it's in either the level 2 or level 3. There's a reverse pivot drill in there. It's Clay and Michael Durr. I can see it in my head right now. Take a look at that drill. I think that's really going to help you with the feelings. It's a lot of what I just talked about there. All right, so Mark B says, on the subject of taking your range swing to the course, I've been working on building and stopping casting on the range. I seem to do okay. I get to the course and find casts much more often. I know it's mental. Do you have a suggestion? So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's mental. It's probably just that you're so the other thing, another big difference between playing golf on the course versus playing or hitting balls at the range is that when you're on the course, there's so many more things that you have to focus on. So when you're on the range, you can just focus on what you're trying to do. You can just focus on, okay, all I'm trying to do is not get this club to cast, and then there's nothing really else that matters. It doesn't matter if you slice it or hook it or whatever. You're just on the range. It doesn't really matter. So when you're out on the course, now you have to worry about, okay, there's a bunker over there. There's water to the left. I got OB over here. I got to carry this water. I don't want to hit it on this part of the green. There's so many other focuses going on that you lose focus on the movement that you're trying to create. So what I would recommend is keep on working on it on the range, get more and more comfortable with it so that it becomes second nature. You got to get the reps in, put the work in, make it second nature so that when you go out to the course, you're already doing it. And it just takes time to get with that. You're going to get better as you move along with it. So that would be my best advice for you. I wouldn't say it's kind of a mental thing in a sense that mentally you have to look at and focus on all these other things that are happening out on the range. But it's not really a mental thing in a sense that that's the only thing that's stopping you. It's more that you just have to get more and more comfortable with it, make it second nature, ingrain the movement so that when you go out to the course and you have those other things going on, it happens automatically and you don't have to think about it. All right. So Rufus says, my big miss with the putter is heel the putter, resulting in a dead, sometimes offline putt. As far as I can tell, my arms tend to drift away from the body on the downswing. I can keep from doing that by thinking about it, but I don't putt well thinking about mechanics. If I just think distance during the strike, I do much better. So anyway, what is the most likely cause of this? So it sounds like you kind of already figured it out. Your arms, you're bringing the putter back. Angle this down. It's hard for me to say without seeing your swing necessarily, but if we grab a putter here, if you're bringing the putter back, you can see this. All right, so if you're bringing the putter back and then you're bringing, and the arms are going out away from your body, then that means, that you're going to hit the ball off the heel. So what I would look at is your setup. You might be standing a little bit too close to the ball. So if you're standing too close to the ball, naturally your arms are going to tend to want to go out in front of you. So I would just try to look straight down to where that club is right behind, or just either in line with or just inside of the golf ball. And then from there, it's just bending over and letting your arms hang down. And then you just go through with the stroke. So I would take a look at that. But I'd also, when you go practice, I would do some variability training where you're actually trying to hit the putter on different parts of the face. So I would actually go out there and try to hit some off the heel, try to hit some off the toe, try to hit some off the center, and get better with being able to strike the ball in the center of the face. So that variability training is going to help you to get an overall feeling of where the center of the face is. And then also what it's going to do, it's going to help you to be able to make adjustments down the course. So if you go out to the course and you're starting to, my head's cut off here. If you go out to the course and you're getting everything off the heel again, well, now, because you practiced it, you know how to get this strike to go out on the toe. And most likely that's going to move the strike closer to the center and you're going to hit better putts. But I agree. Thinking too mechanically with the putting is not typically a good thing for most people. So I would look at your setup first, make sure that you're kind of set up not too close to the ball. And that's going to make your arms going to want to go out away from you. Feel like you're set up probably a little bit more further away with your eyes, maybe just inside of the golf ball. And then I would practice some variability training as well. All right, so Nelson R says, please address shoulders, head, and hand position on chips and pitches. All right, so let's angle this down again. All right, so we talk about, and this is stuff that's all in our pitching and chipping mastery. So our wedge system, it's in there. My head's cut off again. Our wedge system, it's in there. Our chipping mastery section, it's all in there, but I'll do a brief tutorial of what that is. So chipping wise, what I like to do, so you're talking about your shoulders are going to be fairly level, maybe just a little bit angled away with both a chip and a pitch. So you're still going to have your eyes just maybe just a little bit behind the ball. And then that ball position, see if I can move this. So that ball position is going to be somewhere, about middle of your stance, maybe just a hair back of middle or a hair ahead of middle. It's just a matter of where you naturally come down. But with both of these, so if this is a pitch shot, I'm opening up my body a little bit so I can be a little bit more dynamic as I'm coming through there. And I'm feeling like a lot of my weight is forward. So I'm going to feel like 70, 80% of my weight is forward. And I'm going to let my legs kind of pivot back and forth. Stan talked about a video yesterday, SH052, Chipping Made Simple. That is a great video. It was, it's a great supplement to what's in the Top Speed Golf system as far as the chipping mastery goes. But a lot of people, they try to lock in everything and they just try to go like this, which this is good for putting. You do want to lock things in, but in putting, there's the stroke is maybe this long at the longest. You don't need to be really very dynamic or athletic with it. It's more just swing, getting the shoulders to swing back and forth. Whereas with chipping and pitching, you're usually taking a longer stroke and you got to be able to get down and through. There's a little bit more acceleration with it. So don't be afraid to allow the knees to move a little bit, but you want to keep that head pretty much perfectly still, and your lead leg, you want to keep most of your weight on there, and that's going to allow you to stay on your left side. But if you don't want to move your head basically at all, and your head should be just a little bit behind the golf ball. So if you're looking straight down, it's just going to be a little bit behind the golf ball, and you want to keep that head perfectly still because, as Clay talked about in that video, if your head's moving around, so if you're chipping and you go like this, well, now my eyes are moving and it's going to be hard to have really good hand-eye coordination. If you look at they look at a lot of the best players in the world, and any real skill where there's hand-eye coordination involved, and everyone's very, very focused on one thing, and their eyes are not moving around anywhere. They're not looking all over the place, and they're not moving. And that allows them to be very, very precise. You talk about dart players. I mean, if they were sitting here like this, they wouldn't be very good. They're sitting here, their eye is steady. It's not moving at all. And they just go boom. And they're incredible if you've ever watched professional darts on TV. But essentially, you know, that's the same thing we want to do. We want to keep our head very, very still, like it's on a swivel here. And that's going to allow us to be very, very consistent. So same thing goes with pitching. Now with pitching, if you get into the longer shots, you're going to need to be a little bit more dynamic. You know, you're going to need to maybe widen up a little bit when you get longer, so you have a little bit more stability. Still set up a little bit behind the ball. I still like to set up a little bit open, and then it's just a longer swing. You're still keeping your weight, trying to keep your weight on your lead side, keeping that head very, very steady, and let everything come through together. So if you're looking for the best way to learn about all these things, you're going to want to go to work through the chipping mastery for chipping and the wedge system for pitching. All right, so Thomas N says, here my question about the straight line release. From the top of the backswing, when you swing down on plane, you are swinging on a tilted hula hoop, just the visual. So I'm assuming that at some point on this hula hoop, after the contact, is the 45 degrees you refer to. This drill has you stop at this point when actually the club moving very quickly up to the finish. So I assume you're talking about the drill where everything's releasing out in front. So that's just to help you get the feeling everything releasing, but you're exactly right. I don't have a hula hoop in here, but basically, you know, there's a hula hoop. If you pretend like there's a hula hoop right here, or even like a pane of glass, that club is shallowing out and then working to the inside of that, and then it works a little bit to the outside of that as you're coming through. That's ideal. That's to get maximum speed. But even if it's staying on it, that's completely fine as well. But that's typically not what you see what the best players are doing. You want to learn something, if you're a golf nerd like me, and you want to learn about why you want to swing from the inside, go to the search engine on the website and just search off plane. 2 words, off plane. And there's a great video where Clay talks about why you actually want to swing off plane in the downswing. And what happens is that this club will come through and you'll get a little extra boost of speed. It will kick forward as you're going through impact because it's going to want to come back to the ball. So it's almost kind of like a little bit of a slingshot effect as you're coming through there. Sorry, they're building a house next door, so there might be a little bit of background noise. But yeah, you want that club to be staying, you know, close to that hula hoop, working from the inside and then working to the outside as you're coming through. But yeah, everything's releasing out in front. And then that straight line release, that's basically just where, so the club is lagging behind. And then here, it's not lagging anymore. Everything's in a straight line. And then from there, this is where the club overtakes. So that now the club's overtaking the hands and the club has been released. So that's what's happening in the straight line release. But yeah, we know definitely in the swing, everything's moving very, very fast. But you want to, in that drill where you're releasing everything, you're feeling like your chest is releasing out in front, the arms, the hands, the club, everything's releasing out in front. That's just because we want to get the feeling, because most people, they release all that at the golf ball. And when you do that, you're going to tend to flip the club. You're going to add loft, you're going to lose distance, compression, and all that stuff. So we want to get the feeling of all that's being released out in front instead of the golf ball. All right. So Don P says, not your father, but old enough to be. All right. Now I got to call my dad later. All right. So Warren W says, I'm getting a nice smooth swing, but seem to be closing the club head and causing the ball to go left with great distance. So good. You're getting good distance, but you're getting that face to close too much. So what I would try to feel like, the easiest thing for you is just to feel like that you're holding that face off as you're coming through. So if that ball's going left, that means that the face is closed. So you're coming down, you're closing that face too much. So I would just try to feel like that your hands aren't rolling over at all. And you may hit one straight to the right, and that's completely fine because now you know that you can control it. At this point, all you have to do is just ease off of that feeling. So now, instead of feeling like you're holding off, just feel like you're not holding it off as much until you get that ball to straighten out. That's what's really going to be the easiest thing for you. what I see most of the time as far as technique is concerned is I would check draw a line on your backside, do a video from down the line and draw a line on your backside at address. And in the swing, check and see if your backside comes off that line at any part of the swing. So if in the downswing, you're kind of going like this, a lot of times you're going to hit some left shots doing that, because what happens is that when you're pulling up, that's going to increase the closure rate of this club. So when I talk about closure rate, what that means is it's a measurement of degrees per second. And that they're talking about how quickly the face is rotating. So you talk about spin axis, rotations per minute. So you're talking about degrees per second. So you're thinking that's rotating very, very quickly. So when you do that, when you stand up out of the shot, the closure rate increases and it closes that face faster. And you can hit straight shots, but your timing has to be good. But most of the time what I see is that because you're doing this, you're not compensating for that closure rate being faster, and that ball goes left. So I'd make sure that you're staying in your posture. That's going to be the move section, shallowing out the club, staying in your posture, turning that face down, and rotating through impact, keeping that club face square longer through the impact zone. So technique-wise, that's the way I work on. But if you want to look on something kind of easy that isn't technique-related, you're just focusing on impact, I just feel like you're holding off that face. Go to the extreme with it first. Hit some balls that start out to the right and then ease off of it to straighten it out. All right, so James L. says, to make a power turn, I shall move my hands and shoulders first, hip and wrist, hip and waist afterwards, or just move simultaneously when I take away. All right, James, I already answered your question earlier, or I answered a question very, very similar to that anyway. David W. says, I'm quite sure my right-hand side is demon and causes practically all my bad shots. Is there a swing key or drill to keep from using my right hand? I use interlocking grip. So, and then it looks like he has a follow-up to that. Q, not a question, just thanks. Your help with loading up fully on the right side gave immediate results. It's like having a video stopping in the middle of having Clay change the video to address my issue. David from Chicago. All right, awesome. Well, hopefully the weather warms up soon out there and you'll be able to play some golf. Not sure. It's actually a rare, rainy, kind of cool day here in Florida. But glad you're enjoying the office hours and everything. So as far as swinging with the right hand, usually what I see is the club is steep. And when the club is steep in transition, I know if you've come to a lot of these office hours, you've probably heard this about 10 times now. But, it's very, very important to get this club to shallow out, because if you're steep, you're going to have to use that right hand to shallow out the club late. Otherwise, you're just going to dig a trench into the ground. So it's really, really important to get this. And then from there, you're going to be able to get your body rotating. And you're going to be able to feel like you can use your lower body more and be able to get this club to rotate into impact. You do want to use your right hand. It's not like you don't want to use it. It is a very important part of the golf swing, but you want to use it in the right way. So if you get to where you're coming down steep, then you have to use it to shallow out the club. You're going to be really activating these forearm muscles, and it's going to make you cast the club. So really focus on getting that club to shallow out and square that face really. The move is a very, very important part of the swing, and I'd definitely be looking into that. Make sure that you're doing that. Make sure you're using film. Film is one of the best feedback tools that you can use in your golf swing. You need to have feedback to know if you're doing something wrong or if you're improving or anything like that, because if you're off, the camera's not going to lie, and you may feel something that's different than what's actually happening. So you got to make sure that you're filming your swing and taking a look at it so that you know exactly what's going on. All right, so Michael C. Says, would a clockwise pressure of my left wrist at the top of the swing help with laying off the club in prep for the downswing? swing and laying a prep in the downswing, or is that too much? So he's talking clockwise. So we're talking about turning the handle to the right, turning the doorknob to the right. So I think I had this question yesterday, and I think what he's asking is, should I be doing this in my backswing to help shallow out and get this club to shallow out? Will it be easier to do that? And this is actually a really good question. I can definitely understand like why, if I'm already here in the downswing, then all I have to do is turn, which you can do that, you know, but I will tell you that you're going to be fighting physics a little bit. So what happens is, what you're going to see with most professionals is you're going to see this club going up, and then you're going to see it shallowing out. And the reason is that if you bring the club up more vertically, that it will drop. The momentum will make the club want to drop down and shallow out. Whereas if you bring the club back where it's already kind of shallowed out and then try to bring it down, well, now the momentum's going the other way, and it's going to make it more difficult to shallow out. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. If you look at J.B. Holmes, for example, J.B. Holmes brings the club back way inside. I mean, this club is like this, and then he's able to basically straight up in the air, brings it like this and straight up in the air, and then he shallows it out. So it's not like you can't do that, but I would just, you know, whatever helps you to get this club to shallow out, that's what you should be doing. If it's doing this early and then you can get the club to shallow out, then that's what's really going to help you. But what I see in most people is they do this and then they do that in the downswing. They do the opposite of shallowing out. So they shallow it out in the backswing. It's like you talk about Newton's laws, right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the action of shallowing it out in the downswing, you're going to have an equal and opposite reaction of coming down steep in the downswing. We want to come down shallow in the downswing in the transition here. So bringing the club up more steep is going to help you to shallow it out because it's going to be the equal and opposite reaction. So hopefully that, I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're asking, but I hope I answer your question there. All right. So we're about 10:22 right now. We'll keep on moving. So like I said, I'll go till about 10:30. So I'll get as many questions as I can here, but probably going to be wrapping it up here pretty soon. So Mauricio R says, in the downswing, when my left arm is parallel to the ground, the club is 90%, is at a 90% angle. I don't know if he means 90-degree angle or 90%. But anyway, after that, I tend to lose the lag without casting the club, perhaps due to the centrifugal force of the turn. Is there a way to exercise strength in the wrists, the technique to prevent losing the lag too soon? So I wouldn't recommend that. And again, it comes down, I would look, I'm not sure what angle you're looking at. So I'm guessing you're talking like right here in the swing. You say you're at a 90-degree angle. So first, what I'd recommend is trying to generate some more lag. And the other thing is that if you're at a 90-degree angle here, if you are generating lag, you're probably steep. So if I were to, so if you look from this angle here, I have the club straight up and down. So now I'm going to turn and I'm going to try to bend this back toward me as much as I can. So you can see I can get about 20 degrees. So there's 0. That's probably about 20 degrees. So that's the most amount. So I still have it vertical straight up and down. That's about the most I can do. But now watch, if I shallow it, look what happens to that angle. That angle now is looking a lot more than 20 degrees. It's probably looking more like 45 degrees, 60 degrees. So that's what's happening in the golf swing. So what I would say, what's most likely is happening is that you're right here in the swing. It's about 90-degree angle, but you're steep. And when you're steep, it's a recurring theme of this office hours. When you're steep, you're going to tend to release the club early in order to shallow it out late. Otherwise, you're going to dig the club into the ground. You're going to swing over the top or one or the other. So I would make sure that you are also, not only are you're getting this angle here, but you're also shallowing it out. So if you watch, if I shallow it out, now if I turn this way, you can see the club is shallowed out. Now you can see I have that sharp angle of lag. That's what we're going for. So this is steep. So right there, that's steep. That's kind of the angle that you're probably seeing. You may not be casting, but I would guess is that you're coming down steep, and that's why you're losing the lag. So sure, I think theoretically you could try to strengthen your wrists and try to fight that. I tell you what, man, if you're going to be fighting physics, if you're going to be trying to do that, and physics has a really good record, you're going to be trying to fight those forces, and it's just going to be so much easier for you to just do that in the downswing rather than trying to strengthen up your arms and things like that. And in even saying that, I don't even know that would help. I don't even know that really strengthening up your wrists and things like that would even help. And you're asking for injury as well. If you're trying to fight physics, you're trying to fight forces, you're exerting a lot of forces on your hands and your wrists, and you're just asking for injury when you do that. So I would let the club do the work for you, and that will also help prevent injury and be a lot easier. Rod P says, thanks for answering my question earlier, but I was looking for help in getting the club higher. All right, so we're going to need to feel like you're lifting more. So with a lot of people who swing flat, they think everything rotary, everything is rotating. So it's almost like a merry-go-round, right? So everything's flat and rotating. What we want to think of is more like a Ferris wheel. So a Ferris wheel is vertical and rotating. So that's the feeling that you want to have, is that you're more lifting. So you're going to want to feel like your shoulder muscles here, the deltoids in the front here, they're lifting the club up. You may want to feel like you're 100% lifting that club up as high as you can instead of rotating, just rotating. So you're going to need to feel like you're rotating and lifting. That's what's happening in the golf swing, is you're rotating and lifting. So if I were to not rotate at all, this would be what the backswing is like. Let me get to where I don't break the glass or whatever. It would basically, if I don't rotate at all, it's like this. That's the golf swing. It's lifting up. So I do that from this angle. Here I don't rotate. Here's me going up to the top. No rotation. It's that. It's that right there. Look at it from this angle. So left arm's going to be pretty straight. That's it right there. So now if I do that and I lift up, okay, now I add the rotation. There I am. I'm in that position. So you're going to need to feel like you're lifting up. So go ahead and do that exercise. Stand up right now. If you have a club handy, you got some space, lift that club up and then turn. That's the position that you want to be at the top. So I would just maybe do some exercises like that and see if that helps you. But I feel like you're trying to bring your hands as high and you're punching through the sky. Jack Nicklaus used to say that. He used to say he tried to felt like he was punching through the sky with his hands. All right, so James L says, thanks a lot to you, dear Clay. This is my first time on here. Won't disappoint me. You won't disappoint me. I love your attitude. You did. We'll be hanging on top so I'll see you. All right, cool. Thanks, James. Thanks for joining us. Gavin says, what is a great deal or a great drill to bow the wrist at the downswing to get forward shaft lane and square up the club face? 1.2 from the move. Compress the heck out of the ball, go to the move section, instruction tab, the move, and that's going to be the best drill for you. That's where you're coming down about halfway, getting your hands in front of your lead thigh here, and then from there, you're turning the wrist down. You're really, really exaggerating it, and then from there, you're turning it into impact. So I would do that drill. That drill's really going to help you. William says, worthwhile. Thanks very much. You're welcome. Thanks for hanging out. Steve S says, hitting too many balls. I don't know why it censors balls. Close to the inside portion of the golf face. Help me correct this. So as far as the easiest way to correct it is to line up as you normally would. If you line up on the center of the face, typically line up on the center of the face and then intentionally try to strike it off the toe. Intentionally try to strike it there as far as you can. If you actually strike it on the toe, ease off of it a little bit. What's most likely going to happen is it's going to move the strike closer to the center. If you still strike it on the heel, exaggerate it even more. I mean, exaggerate it to the point to where you feel like you're going to whiff to the inside of it. Whatever it takes to get that ball closer to the center of the face. That's the easiest way. But what I see most of the time with people who are hitting a lot of heel strikes is if you draw that tush line, if you draw, video from down the line, draw that line right on the backside. What I almost always see is this. So in the downswing, I see that. The edge of the vent, let's say that's the tush line, okay? Try to get lined up on the camera. So I go to the top. What I almost see always with people who are struggling hitting shanks or off the heel is in the downswing, they do this. So see how my butt is moving away from that? And now that takes away all the space I had to work the club from the inside. And this comes from coming down steep. It just comes from trying to rotate the hips open, and they're just thrusting the hips. So it's a matter of trying to feel like as you're coming down that your hip is getting pulled back and out of the way, and that's going to allow you to create the space to get the club to work from the inside. There's a great drill. Just search shank in the search engine on the website. There's a great drill in there where Clay talks about pushing that hip back. It's either the second or third video in the search. I just looked for it the other day to give to somebody. So I definitely check out that one. The thumbnail, the video, it has like a club face with a bunch of red dots on it. That's the one that you want. So I take out, all those videos that are in there are going to address the issue. But that one is one of my favorites. All right. So Robert R says, how do I control distance out of the bunker? Do I hit it closer to the ball, swing faster, closer to the club, or something else? Controlling distance out of the bunker, I get this question a lot. It's just going to come down to practice. You need to go out there and practice what it's based on your club head speed, how fast you come through it. So what I would try to say is you always come through the ball with the same amount of acceleration. Try to feel the same kind of tempo and acceleration through the ball. And that way, the distance changes by a way of how much you lengthen your swing. And I try to take the same amount of sand every single time, just to make it simple. When you get better at it, you can work on trying to take different amounts of sand and seeing the differences that you get. But just to keep it simple, initially, I would go out and I would hit some shots. And usually what we found is that it's about a third. So if you were to take your 56 degree and were to hit a normal pitch shot, so let's say it's a 9 o'clock swing. So a 9 o'clock swing, and the back swing would be where the lead arm is parallel to the ground. So that's a 9 o'clock swing, this right here. So that would mean that as I'm coming into the ball, if I were to hit, let's say I have a 56 degree here, and a 9 o'clock swing, that's a 70. Let's actually keep the math simple. Let's say it's a 60-yard shot. Well, a third of that would be about 20 yards. So that's about, as a guesstimation, that's about how far a bunker shot would go. Like if you were to hit a 20-yard pin, you would take that kind of swing. So that's where I would start with it. And I would try to take the same amount of sand every time, go in the sand, draw the lines in the sand, 3 lines in the sand, 3 or 4 inches apart. And I would try to enter the sand where that first line is, put the ball in the middle, on the middle line, and then try to have the club exit the sand and take a look at, hit the shots and see where it was. If it's a little bit before that and you hit the ball shorter, well, that's probably why, because you took a little bit too much sand. If it's a little ahead of it and you caught too much ball and you kind of bladed it out of there, well, that's probably why, because you didn't take enough sand. So I would try to be consistent with the amount of sand you take initially. Once you get better at it, then you can play around with less sand, more sand, trying to hit more of a chunk and run type of bunker shot versus one that's high up in the air and has a lot of spin on it. So I try to keep it simple at first. Go out there. If you hit if a 9 o'clock swing with a 50 or your sand wedge is a 60-yard shot, that's about how far that's about a 20-yard bunker shot. That's where I'd start at. Maybe for you it's 25, maybe it's 15. That's where I'd start at and just kind of gauge it from there. But it just takes practice learning those distance. It's based on a lot on feel, because obviously it's just like when you were hitting your wedges off the turf, you had to get a better feeling for how far all of those would go. It's no different than when you're in the bunker, when you're trying to hit bunker shots. All right, so Bernard L says, just watched how to start the downswing. Seems like the hips rotate back quickly at the start of the backswing, whereas wall drill keeps hips against the wall till hands club pocket level. So when are the hips start to rotate correctly? So what the wall drill is doing, the wall drill is trying to help you to feel, that's a power turn section drill. That's trying to help you to feel the separation of your hips and your shoulders. that's the point of that drill. It's not actually what you're trying to do in the golf swing, restricting your hips. It's trying to help you to get the feeling of those shoulders starting first and then everything else starting to rotate. It's to get your shoulders involved in the swing earlier in the swing, instead of, because what we see a lot of times is we see people, they just lift up the club. Well, there's no shoulder rotation. There's very, very little shoulder rotation. So if you just lift up the club, it's going to be hard to get much distance from here. So you got to get those shoulders going early and then get that club lifting up. And that's going to help you to get a bigger range of motion. So the drill, the wall drill is not intended to help you to learn how to start the downswing. It's intended to help you get the feeling of the difference between your keeping your hips stable and turning your shoulders, getting the shoulders more involved. So it's two different kinds of drills that you're going for there. All right, so I think that's it. If anybody has any questions, be sure to join us on Monday. Keep forgetting what day it is. It's Friday, everybody. So enjoy your weekend. Hopefully you're able to go out and play some golf. Thanks for joining me, and I'll talk to you next time.